Ladies and gentlemen, good night. Welcome to the latest installment in the Jamaica Technology and Digital Alliance's Road to BizTech 2026. Tonight, we're talking about AI as your first hire. Now, we know AI adoption is accelerating globally, and many micro, small, and medium enterprises are asking a practical question. How can this technology help me to grow without immediately increasing payroll? Tonight's session explores how small businesses can use AI to automate routine tasks, improve efficiency, and operate with greater capacity without losing trust, control, or strategic direction. I'm joined by a star studded panel, and I'm actually going to allow them to introduce themselves because they have very interesting backgrounds. And I want to hear for maybe a minute a bit about what you've been up to and your background in AI as well. So let's start off with Mrs. Stacey Hines.
Hi, good night, everybody. I like how you said Mrs. there. Danielle, thank you very much. I'm Stacey Hines, also known as AI Lady Boss. And I'm no stranger to this stage for sure, having been past president, or I am past president of the Jamaica Technology and Digital Alliance. My background is primarily technology. I've been in tech since I was 9 and leading AI training and workshops since 2023. And now I am actively building an AI platform to support MSMEs and investors on their transformation journey and continuing to do consulting and coaching work. So very excited to be here tonight.
Wow, great to have you, Stacey. And over to you, Nadeen. Give us a little bit of your background.
Hi, everyone. Good night. Nadeen Matthews Blair, AI consultant and educator. And my journey in AI and digital transformation would have started at NCB, leading digital transformation, advanced analytics, which included AI there. And today I help companies measuring their AI maturities, working through their AI strategies, leading AI workshops for corporate teams, as well as my own masterclass that helps persons get hands-on experiences with the technology and used it to start my career after 20 plus years in corporate across NCB, McKinsey, and JP Morgan Chase to become a thriving solopreneur. And so being an AI first entrepreneur is something that I live and I fully endorse.
Wow, thank you so much, Nadeen. And over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Danielle. So, hi, everybody. I'm Mark Frankson. My company is Transcend AI, and I am a AI consultant. I try and help companies understand the technology, try and push through all the hype that is in the news, and truly figure out how they can get some return on investments, how they can use it as a tool for their employees to expand their capabilities, and really trying to balance that alongside not using an entire team or a whole bunch of employees, and how to use it responsibly. My background is in technology. I have worked inside and outside of Jamaica for Fortune 100 companies, for local companies, and now, like many of you, I'm on this new journey of having an AI entity, a baby that I'm trying to bring to maturity, just like anybody else.
All right. Thank you so much, Mark. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can see we have a star studded panel. They already bring so much experience to the table. And I'm honored to be your moderator and host tonight, Danielle Mullings. My background is also in software engineering and now looking at, how AI is playing into that, especially with youth engagement and ensuring young people are a part of the development. That being said, let's jump right into our discussion questions. And I want to start off with the obvious question. What does AI as your first hire actually mean for MSMEs? So clarify what that concept is and starting to set some expectations. So let's start off with you, Nadeen, to answer this question.
Thanks, Danielle. AI as your first hire for me means pausing because as entrepreneurs, we typically specialize in something. Maybe we're a doctor and we're starting a practice, or we are doing an e-commerce business, and there's one thing that we're really good at. And so once we need to do marketing or finance, our instinct is to, well, I need to hire someone.
Right.
And it's taking that pause and reflecting on what it is you really need, because you may absolutely need marketing support. You may absolutely need some finance support. But in this era that we're living in, that doesn't translate necessarily into hiring someone right away. That may look like learning about and leveraging AI tools. I mentioned using AI tools to start my own business. My first website was built by an AI tool until I could engage a developer to actually build out the next site. So pausing, reflecting, leveraging the tools, or engaging somebody on a part-time basis who is good at the tools so that you can keep your overhead low while continuing to grow.
Right. Thank you so much. Maybe Stacey, is there anything else you'd like to add into what Nadeen has just shared?
Yeah, sure. And I fully endorse the pause perspective, since I don't do pause very well. And it can be very detrimental to progress. Actually, a lot of people think that you need to just get going right away, and in many instances, that's how entrepreneurs start, right? You start moving and in action. And when you think about hiring, I want to reframe it slightly, because when you are hiring an individual, an actual human, you're not just saying, here is my business, here is my marketing, as Nadine would say, or here is my accounting, which is another area that is oftentimes not the favorite part for MSMEs. You don't just hand them the laptop or the folder and say, go do the work. You
Right.
still have to take them through a process, right? You still have to train them. You have to talk through standard operating procedures. And so when we think about hiring your first AI employee, we still want to make sure that we're putting those guardrails in place around the way we think about that, because it will require some ramping up. And there is also the context, of course, of making sure that you are offloading the parts that you're not necessarily the best at, but you're doing it in a way that is going to help you, even if it takes you a little bit of time to get that tool up to speed.
Right. And I think you're pointing out an important point here around ensuring that the way we introduce AI into our business is one that is suitable, ethical, and the type of data that we're giving it as well is one that we're, actually comfortable and clear to share, etc. And so I think, Mark, I'm going to ask you a slightly different question, kind of looking at what does a small business need to be thinking about before they even bring AI into the equation? Like, if they're planning to bring it in, what is it that they need to assess for themselves before bringing on their first AI employee?
Okay, a couple of things. There's so much going on with the technology right now, so much that is flashy and new. It's easy for us to gravitate towards the possibilities. It's possible to do this, it's possible to do that. And so we want to get in on that. I would advise small businesses start out with their pain points, not what's possible. Start out with where you're hurting, right? And find out where those gaps are, and then see how you can use AI as a solution to help fill those gaps. If you're an individual, or if you already have people on board, the next thing that you definitely need to do is an AI policy, right? So many people are using AI, and I think where we are, a lot of people now know how to use ChatGPT, and they know you throw some stuff in there and you put together a decent prompt, and it gives you back some answers. But how, as a small business, how is your information being protected? How is your sensitive data being guarded? And how are you guiding your employees what to use with AI and what not to use, whether it's for the company or for your customers? And so for me, those are two things that I think businesses need to consider before diving right in. And it doesn't take a lot of time, but it does take a bit of dedicated effort to figure out, what do I actually need versus that I should start. And once I bring something on board, what is the policy that's going to guide my team onto how to use it?
Thanks so much, Mark. And I think you're highlighting again that bit around the safeguards that need to be in place as we're introducing this new technology into our businesses. So moving forward then, of course, everyone always gets excited to bring in new technology, but where should businesses draw the line between tasks that AI can support versus areas that still require human judgment and oversight? I'm going to go back to you, Stacey, on this one.
So I am a very relationship-driven person, and in particular, when it comes to serving customers, serving clients, and I believe that this is where the human element really just can't ever be removed. I certainly believe in human first AI, meaning that we always want to have a human in the loop, and sometimes you just use just the human. I think we've become so very much dependent on the AI response for everything, and one of the things that we're observing is just how everybody sounds the same, because everyone is still learning how to train their machines so that they take on the tone and style of the persons. So I think that that relationship component remains really critical, especially for those businesses where that human interaction is very important. We do have great tools that are now being trained well, and we've seen lots of use cases and examples where it proves that having that human in the loop is very critical. I did a business case discussion on Klarna, which is one of the companies that does payments, and they took a bold move and decided that they were going to just replace the majority of their customer service agents with AI tools. I don't know if you're familiar with that story. And there was a lot of backlash from the market because it was very difficult for persons to actually get beyond the AI in order to have those meaningful conversations and get the results where they needed to get the results for the more complex things. And so now, through the hard lesson of reputational damage, Klarna has had to go back and do that balancing act of making sure that they're creating a hybrid environment where they're maintaining that human in the loop. So I would start there by saying, first place I'm drawing the line is where that relational component comes in.
Okay, thanks, Stacey. So highlighting that relational component. Nadeen, what do you think? Where should businesses draw that line for tasks that AI can support versus human support?
I agree with Stacey in terms of the importance of the human. And I take that further to say that the perspective that I'm coming from, I'm assuming it's a brand new company, entrepreneurs, they don't have a team member yet, which is why they're contemplating their first AI employee.
Right.
One of the things that we that entrepreneurs have a hard time with is this concept of the thing that only I can do. And it doesn't mean that everything involving humans is the thing that only you can do. And so you have to really dig deep and figure out what that is. There's usually human in the center of that. And then you have to find the other things that you can actually let go so you can be exceptional at that thing that only you can do. The other thing I'd like to share is a framework by Professor Bharat Anand that I like, and it's around the cost of the error. If there's a high cost of error, so you think a hospital, it needs to make a decision on which leg to amputate, as an example. There's a high cost if you make that wrong. It's not like you can put on back somebody's leg, right?
Right.
And so please do not leave those things to AI. Now, if it's just something that it's high volume, lots of explicit knowledge available, it's a two-way door, you can reverse it and still be okay, then yes, you look at some of those low cost of error activities as areas to prioritize in terms of where you can start to leverage AI first.
Thank you. I think that's an excellent framework and mindset to have, looking at the low cost of error. And it ties in so well with what Stacey mentioned earlier about the reputational damage that Klarna has, incurred because they didn't consider this before, right? So, with that being said, I think, Mark, we'd love to have your perspective here as well. What do you think about that AI versus human support? How do we determine who should do what?
So I think the perspective both Nadeen and Stacey shared are absolutely crucial. If I were to add to that, decision making, the way I approach AI platforms and how I advise people to approach AI platforms is think of it as an intern, right? You're going to let it do 60, 70% of the work, and then you give that to a human being to review and finish it off. So across the board, whatever industry, whatever work it is doing, still being developed. It's known to make errors. And so use it as a tool that does the majority of the work and have a human being in place to make those final decisions. And this is decisions, whether it is to pick an option between something, or it has, written a document or created a report. I feel like a human, and Stacey mentioned human in the loop, still needs to be that give that final say on whether this goes out to the client or the employees or the managers. A human needs to be that decision maker.
All right, highlighting the decision-making piece. Thank you very much, Mark. Audience, I do have a question for you, so I'd love for you to fill up the comments with this. If AI could take one task off your plate tomorrow, whether it's admin, customer responses, marketing, finance, or planning, which one would you choose and why? So we look forward to seeing some of your comments roll in as we continue the conversation. And I'll also leave some time for us to answer audience questions. So also feel free to drop some questions in the chat. Now, moving on, let's look at this practically, right? Stacey, let's start with you. How can AI help a one person or small team operate like a larger organization? What are some of those areas we're automating or helping with?
I think the lowest hanging fruit that an MSME can get help with is the same thing that I get help with, even as somebody with a deep technology background, and that is the starting point. A lot of times we get stuck on that blank sheet of paper, or we get stuck on the big project where we think we have to have all the information and we don't know where to begin. I think that's probably the lowest hanging fruit. And I say that because most times, especially when you are not familiar with AI and you're seeing a lot of the noise that's going on, it can come across as a very overwhelming space. And you're not sure of what do I do when I now look at this particular tool? Which tool do I start with? Where do I begin? So you have all of these different questions. And even if you know a tool, similar to how Mark said earlier, that ChatGPT is the tool that everybody knows. You have quite a few individuals who may know about the tools, they may have the tools, they may even go and look at the window within the tool, but they don't take that first step because they are not really sure how to begin that engagement. And no matter where you are in your AI maturity journey, you will always come across a new thing or another thing. And where do you begin is ultimately what it boils down to, right? And so I think that for a one person or a small team to operate like an organization, one of the first things I recommend is to use your tool as your thinking partner. If you don't know where to begin or you don't know what prompt to use, literally start a conversation with that.
Yes.
So it becomes your thinking partner, where you are now not waiting to figure out how to use it, but you're using it to use it. And immediately that builds traction, it gets momentum going. And this is what organizations that have multiple employees do. They get to build traction and momentum quickly because they have lots of thinking partners that are working together to support forward progress. And I believe that that essentially lays the foundation for everything that you're doing, no matter what stage of your AI transformation journey you're in.
Thank you, Stacey. I think looking at it as a thinking partner ties in very well with what Mark was saying earlier as well, about treating it like an intern. And personally, for me, what I like the most about it is I think very fast and I have a lot of thoughts, and I can just turn on the voice function and say, this is what I'm thinking for this new project and idea. These are all the new ideas I have, and it's able to just kind of structure it and give me a starting point, like you were saying. I think that has helped me quite a bit. And I guess we'd like to hear from you as well, Mark. Like, what specific business functions do you think, AI can really help with, especially in the context of an MSME?
All right. The topic is, hiring your first AI employee. And I would like us to reframe that and look at it as hiring an employee or human employees. AI is still so new, it needs a handler, right? There's not, to my knowledge, any AI tool that is truly agentic and can perform for weeks at a time on it, right? So you still need a handler. What I've found works best is if you give each of your employees, even if it's a small team, an AI agent. So they in turn have some assistance and can build out the team using AI. If you're an individual, then you have use as your employees, but there's hardly any situation where it's standalone. I've been using Clawbot. The name has changed in the past couple of weeks so much, and it's brilliant in terms of doing research. I'm driving in the car, to WhatsApp and tell it to go and research something and email it to this person, and it does that. But then you have to go back after that and follow up to do something else. So I think as a research agent, we have voice agents that are emerging now. I am excited to see how these develop. The voice agents we have on board now can answer the phone, give out basic information based on its knowledge base, and call around if it has a direct number and speak with someone and, set up a meeting, stuff like that. So we're still scratching the surface. There's so much more to come, but I think those are opportunities there where small businesses can better enable their current team by giving them an AI intern to help with their workload.
Okay. I get that framing. So looking at still needing the human that's in the loop from what we were speaking about earlier. Nadeen, over to you. And you mentioned earlier being a solopreneur.
Yes.
What are some business functions maybe that you've used AI for to help you in your journey?
Yes, I'm coming from the perspective of a solopreneur because I know that there are many Jamaicans who are in the process of starting businesses and just don't feel like they have enough capital. And
Right.
as someone who has mentored many SMEs, I think that many spend too much time trying to get capital and bank loans and, working on the product. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad, there's this point in his book where he talks to this lady who's complaining about her book being so well written. And he said something to the effect of, lady, it's best selling author. There's nothing called best writing author. And so for someone who doesn't have a lot of employees and starting out, one way to leverage AI to punch above your weight is in the marketing and sales functions. There is so much that you can do with AI tools to promote your products and services, to promote yourself even before it's perfect. Because once persons test, you learn more than if you sit in a lab and work on that product. So you test it, you get feedback, and then you make it even better. But by focusing on the front of the funnel, you start to bring in revenues, you start to bring in cash, which you need to fund your business. And so with simple tools, Claude, Opus, and Instagram and a TikTok account, in this day and age, you can go a far way as a solopreneur or a company with just one person. You can present yourself as a business with 10 to 20 persons. And so that's where I would focus functionally, as a first step for solopreneurs.
Wow. And we know social media and marketing overall is very important in today's day and age. So nice to highlight that that's one area that AI can assist with. Stacey, I'm going to go back to you. How do you measure whether AI is actually saving you time or money? Right? We talk a lot about this and the hype around it, but how do I know it's actually working for me?
Right. I'm so glad you asked that question, because this is one of the things that I've spent a lot of time focusing on, not just for MSMEs, but also for the large corporations that I do work with. And that is around AI readiness and understanding what value persons are expecting to get once they implement. So typically what you want to do is you want to do some type of audit. This is as the entrepreneur, as the solopreneur, MSME person. You want to be able to really get clear on where you are and also on what you're trying to achieve. What's the dream? What's the vision? Because you're going to be going into business a lot. As Nadeen said, a lot of people are diving into that deep end now and just starting their companies, right? So sometimes we get into that deep end and we're not really clear about the return on investment. So We're going to go and we're going to get the tool, and it's going to be magical because I see all these people on social media doing all this magic, right? But we haven't really looked at a process that we currently do that takes us 10 hours. Maybe it is that, email, we spend maybe 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day drafting emails. And we have done some research that has told us that AI can reduce the amount of hours that you spend drafting emails and making presentations. Maybe it is that you even attend an event and you see the wow on the screen where someone is able to show you that you can cut down your time on doing a presentation, for example, in tools like Gamma or in Google Gemini. And then you go back to your desk and you're like, yeah, I want to cut down on the time and I'm going to do this thing. And we don't currently have a sense of, well, I'm definitely going to make a note that it was taking me, 2-3 weeks to do a client proposal. And now it's taking me, an hour or two. So I think it really is important to baseline where we are. One of the things that I believe all of us that are in the AI space are trying to harness is data, because when you have that data, you can better support persons that you are either coaching or consulting with or educating. And you can also provide insight to groups like the JTDA to further the work that we're doing in advocacy. So I think having that baseline is really important, both for the persons that are on the side of the fence where they're the ones implementing, the MSME that's trying to do the transformation. You don't have to get a consultant to do that, aside from the fact that there's free assessments out there.
Yeah.
Right. You can just sit down and make some notes, use an Excel spreadsheet and jot down, do an audit of your day and see how many phone calls you were taking. Mark mentioned that their AI that they have trained can now answer calls and make basic phone calls out for them, sales calls. So how much time do you spend on sales calls? Do you spend any time on sales calls? Right? Because if you're not selling, as Nadeen said, the business doesn't exist. So really getting clear, doing a simple audit or signing up for free readiness assessments, and then moving it a bit further by making sure you have some kind of baseline documentation, and then choosing where the pain point is that you want to immediately remove and measuring that. So if it's in a week, You start at the beginning of the week, you say, all right, I spend 2 hours on email, an hour doing calls, and by the time I get to the end of the week, I want to, decrease that by X number.
Okay,
And then
so
at the end of the week, you do the reflection and make sure that you are able to simply and easily track the value that you're getting. Yeah, that's one way.
I Mark seems like some thoughts are running through his head as you were speaking. I'm gonna go over to you, Mark. What would you like to add in?
Um, I quite like what Stacey just said. It is important for you to listen. You can't manage what you can't measure, right? If you don't know where you are, you can't figure out anything else. So to take Stacey's point a little bit further, in addition to doing that assessment, you also, whether it's for yourself or for your team, need to figure out the new KPI now that you have AI on board. It's
Right.
pointless if a task that used to take you 4 hours to do now takes 2, but you use the other 2 hours to watch TV, or your staff use that other 2 hours to play games on the computer. Those 4 hours still only resulted in this amount of work getting done. So whether it is the leadership or a solopreneur, you do the assessment that Stacey mentioned. Figure out what it is that you, the human, the task takes you to do. Drop in AI and see how that is. But you need to take it a step further and figure out how are you going to use this newfound time. You've gained this efficiency, so how are you utilize on that to either get more work done, or whatever the goal is for reducing your workload. Some people may want more time at home with the family. That has a value too, even though it's not work.
Right.
That as well. But the idea is do the assessment like Stacey said, but take it a step further and ensure that you're changing the KPI now that AI is on board.
Wow, really important points, and I think those two built very beautifully on each other. Nadeen, is there anything you want to add in on this same concept of how do I know that AI is working for me?
I agree with those points completely. And I just want to, assure everyone who, words like assessment may sound intimidating.
Yes.
And this can be, very easy as going through your day and leaving a voice note or dropping yourself a WhatsApp in terms of what did you do today? And then taking all of that plus your calendar and dumping it into ChatGPT or Claude at the end of the week, because many of us, and all of us are guilty of it, because that happens to me too, where you're like, what am I do this week? What am I do? You don't even know. So Stacey's point about that radical self-awareness about like, all right, I need to sit down and like monitor this. And you typically only need to do this for like, 1 week or so, where you, literally go through and document what you did every moment of the day, in blocks, of course, for the week. And then to Mark's point, so when you get back the time, what are you going to do with it? Because if you're not intentional about that upfront, you'll get back the time because you will use Gamma or you will use another tool. However, it will not be used in a way that's productive, where you get family time or you grow because you deploy that to sales. And so you'll still have this feeling of, where did time go? Because you weren't paying attention to the fact that you're using it to watch TV now.
Wow.
Can I add something else to that? And I don't know if you can relate to this, Nadeen, but this is something that I am currently grappling with, and I'm curious, and I'm actually curious about it with you too, Mark, since you're the male on the call. But one of the things that I find is that, and maybe it's because coming from a corporate background, you are always inundated with work. I mean, especially when you get to a C-suite level, right? And so it's almost like you can feel the work around you, even if you are not necessarily having an assignment. This is why when you go off on vacation, it takes like 2 weeks just to get your mind off of work, right? One of the experiences I've been having now that I am 100% entrepreneuring in my business as a solopreneur is that I will get the space and then I feel like there is work, and it does something to my mind where it's almost like I can't do the next productive thing because I'm just feeling a sense of, oh my gosh, there's stuff to do, even though I can be more relaxed now because I've been able to use, the tools to support me. I don't know if any of you guys have had that experience or if I'm over here by myself.
Yeah, no, I can relate. I think what it is, Stacey, is the weight of the possibilities that we could be capturing. That is like, no, we can't sit down. I have to be going after my millions.
Yes,
It's like,
yes.
Mark, what about
There's
you?
so much exploring to be done, so much that's new to try out and to test and to put into place that I think where we sit, we tend to keep going, even though we have the tools at our fingertips that will allow us to step back a little bit. So you definitely, it's a new world, and we all need to figure out how to operate at our best in this new environment.
It's a really important point that you've raised, Stacey, and supported by Nadeen and Mark. I think, as we bring technology into our lives, there are existing, what would I say? One, relationships and the way that we interact with the technology is also important. So you're highlighting that even if it does save me some time, you might still have a bit of guilt, wondering to yourself, should I actually be working every single, waking hour that I can to squeeze in as much as I can?
Yes.
And that's just, human nature. So I want to use this as a segue into looking at what are some of the misconceptions that you've seen, especially here within Jamaica or within the region, when it comes to AI and using it in business. And maybe for this, we'll start with Nadeen.
there are, I don't want to call them misconceptions, Danielle, because in all of them, there's some truth.
Okay.
And then you take the truth and you decide to buy into a particular narrative.
Mm-hmm.
So with every technology, there are harms. I mean, I gave the example in a workshop today when motor vehicles came into being, people were dying left and right because there were no seat belts, safety bags, all those alarms that we have nowadays. And then you didn't have the speed limits and all of those things. And so when you have new technology, you have to have regulation and innovation, and that brings down the harm level.
Yeah.
And we're so early in the generative AI space, not necessarily traditional AI, that we're still at that space of innovation, and that's continuing to happen, but also the regulation to bring down the harm. So the fears are valid. I never discount anyone's fears. What I try to get persons to realize that is the paralysis is more harmful.
Right.
If we're afraid of job loss or job disruption, which by the way, I think that narrative is overblown as well, then what you're going to do about it? There's in no scenario where sitting down is really the answer. And so it is, I encourage persons to work with experts, coaches like Stacey, Mark, myself, to help them to understand and to contextualize anything that they have a misconception around, whether it be the job situation, whether it be the environment situation, whether it be the cheating situation. Which my perspective on that is persons have been cheating long before AI, getting people to buying papers online, writing things out of the encyclopedia, writing out of Wikipedia, right? the prime ministers and presidents, they use speech writers, but they're accountable for what they say. So when we don't have a speech writer. So when we leverage AI as our speech writer and personalize it so everything don't sound the same, like Stacey mentioned, how is it different than the prime minister having a speech writer? So it's helping persons to contextualize the issue a little bit more so that they can get out of their head, stop being paralyzed by the narratives, and move forward with the technology in a way that's responsible and helpful for their needs.
Thank you, Nadine. I want to build on that then. So to also ask you now, Mark, so in addition to maybe any fears that you may be seeing within this space in terms of using AI in business, in addition to that, do you think our Jamaican MSMEs are ready for AI adoption?
I think Mark looks frozen.
I was wondering as well.
Okay.
Yes.
That was directed at me or Nadine?
At you, Mark.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear that
No
part. I
worries.
looked at Nadine waiting for her answer. My apologies, guys. I think we can be. I don't know if we're ready to start tomorrow, but I think the barrier to entry is very low. People need to start with education, or not people, we as a group, as a country, we need to start with educating ourselves. A lot of the conversations I had when I just got into this was people were keeping AI at arm's length because they didn't understand it, and so they'll just watch and see. They'll wait and see what happens. It cannot be. We don't operate in a so even as an individual, you need to get yourself abreast with the technology and have it on your radar. You will be harmed at so many different levels if you don't. If you're a small business and you choose not to use it, well, your competitors are using it.
Right.
If you don't want to onboard the technology, are you then going to be attracting the best talent? Because there are going to be people who want to work within an organization that's moving forward. Think of any entity right now who decided not to go ahead with using the internet or cell phone technology. Absolutely floored. They would be nowhere. So we stand a risk of inaction as much as there are risks associated with action. And Nadeen shares this point, Stacey shares this point. And I also believe in, while we're innovating, we also need to be regulating. And we need to be regulating on a country level, but also on a local level within your entities and for your own self. Don't, as an individual, go download, some random AI platform onto your main computer that you have all your invoices and sensitive work information on.
Right.
Be careful about how you do it, and you get to understand the context by first educating yourself, taking a master class, doing something on the internet, doing a workshop, figuring out what this thing is, and then figuring out where you need help to see if that's where AI will come. Stacey said it earlier, many people have said it. It's not a magical switch. It is a tool that is very powerful and can be used to lift an immense amount of weight. But you have to take those little steps.
So we're seeing that need for education being reinforced. And I think with that in mind, as persons do bring AI on board, is there any risk, do you think, Stacey? Is there any risk of scaling too fast with automation?
Yes. Here's the thing, right? Especially when you are in an evolving space, like leveraging AI tools, there are constant shifts and changes. So I would say, first and foremost, to get very familiar and comfortable with one or two tools. That is both risk mitigation and also just for deepening knowledge and building trust with a tool, especially if you're intending to scale and build out the business. Managing risk, because there is a lot of moving parts within the large language model space, which is what these more broad brush generative AI solutions are. So your Claude, your ChatGPT, your Manos, Copilot, Gemini, these are all owned by the large tech companies, and the smaller ones are getting gobbled up by the large tech companies, right? So there is a lot of conversation about which one of these tools is going to survive the big rush that we're seeing right now. So it's a good idea to yes, experiment, but not necessarily just have every single tool all at one time. The next thing is cost, because a lot of persons, especially us Caribbean folks, we want to taste before we buy. And so there is a lot of the signing up for the free tools, which in and of itself come with a lot of security and privacy issues and risks. And so what will sometimes happen when we think about scaling fast or automating too fast is we'll start to plug and play with whatever we can get for free, not recognizing the security risks and issues that we could be introducing. Right. So tackling some of those misconceptions is one part of it in terms of dealing with the fear. And on the flip side, just making sure that as you're taking steps to bring in tools, that you're managing your costs, because the same thing, you could be doing the sales and then the same money that you start to make, you have to spend the money right back on the tools, right? Leveraging things that aren't actually serving you in the long run. Like maybe you choose to get a whole bunch of different tools, and ultimately the automation isn't giving you the ROI. So going back to that value context that we had discussed a little bit earlier. So there are some risks, and I think it is useful for that tool or those, couple of tools that you go deep with, that you examine the risk as you are scaling and examine the opportunities that you're looking at for automation against the vision that you have and the value that you're expecting to get.
Thank you, Stacey. And Nadeen, I want to look now in terms of what are some specific tools that some of our viewers, our listeners who are tuning in, they might be saying, okay, all of this sounds good. I'm ready to examine the risks that come with it. And I'm ready to see how, AI can be one of my first interns in the workplace. But what is a practical tool, like a couple of them maybe, that persons can start exploring with tonight?
Yeah. So I recommend that everyone start with one of the major LLM tools. Claude is currently my favorite, but there's also ChatGPT, which is the most widely used with over 800 million active users or something like that. And then Gemini, which has some deals, particularly for teachers and things like that, so you can explore. I haven't tried Grok personally, but that's one that persons tend to bring up as well. And you are able to try before you buy, as Stacey pointed out, but you have to do that carefully. Right. While you're on the free versions, you do not have these protections. And so you're trying the free version so you don't over invest. You want to see which one feels right for you and your use cases, and then purchase a paid version. They're very affordable, $20 US per month for the most part. And then immediately update your security settings to make sure you turn off the training because they're on by default. It's something like improve the model for everyone. Yeah, turn that off. And also add dual factor authentication, multi-factor authentication as soon as possible so that you can secure it. And then you want to personalize it by, putting in your bio and your writing style in the relevant section, so it starts to really get to know you. So I would start with one of those before diving off the deep end in anything else. And the great thing with these tools is that you can leverage them to do research on other tools that fit your particular need. So therefore, you can do a deep research in ChatGPT or Claude and say, hey, I'm trying to fix invoicing or do SOPs. What's the most efficient way or tools that I can leverage for this? And it will give you a response. I also love the age that we're in that if you want information, there's a ton of free information on YouTube and TikTok. And so, where you are in doubt, you can use those channels to learn more about the ways to use those tools to solve your particular pain points. We've heard that a couple of times. Really zero in what you're trying to achieve. So someone on social media might be using it for avatars. If you don't need an avatar, no, go look for that. Sort out your invoicing, sort out your sales, and look for those videos and use the tools for those particular capabilities.
Thank you so much, Nadeen. And Mark, do you have any, tips on specific tools as well that our listeners can tune into?
Right. So again, agree with what both ladies are saying. I encourage people to learn one of the general tools that Nadeen just mentioned, and then a tool specific to your industry. Right. So if you're in banking, get to know Claude, Gemini, or ChatGPT, and then something that is in banking, whether it's investment related, but it's specific for your industry. Off the top of my head, I'll share with you some of the ones that I like, right? So I'm a huge fan of ChatGPT. It is my workhorse for almost everything. That's the general tool that I have. When I need graphics, I turn to Midjourney, right? It does a phenomenal job of generating images. If I need to do anything with voice, 11 Labs is a good place to visit to get different AI voice, and you're able to even clone your own voice. My voice, and when I played it back for my wife, all she said was, "You sound like you're reading something." She didn't recognize that wasn't me speaking.
Wow.
So it's good out there. The tool is good. What else? Nadeen, Stacey, help me out now. What are some of the tools?
Well, I mean, I haven't gone yet, so
Yes, Stacey, go.
I use so many tools, and now I'm here drawing a blank. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Forgive me.
So, interestingly enough, I am a fan of a lot of the ones that Nadeen and Mark mentioned. Definitely having a love affair right now with Claude, especially since 4.6 came out. I will say that there's two sides to the tools that I'm really geeking out on. There's the side of me that has my dev team working on the platform, on the SaaS platform, Dava, that I mentioned earlier. And in that world, it's we kind of have a little bastard thing going on, to be quite honest, because we're using Codex for its structure. We're using Gemini for its way of relating to humans, so it's very conversational. And then we're using Claude, because Claude is just magic, right? And so you just get these opportunities to do some very cool things, especially related to reports, because there's a reporting component or feature in the application. So very much around the structure of the larger models. Now, on the personal side, especially in the space of prepping for the summit, where we're doing a lot of marketing. So that's one way you're going to see a lot of other Caribbean people with this upcoming summit. Some in this room here, you want to come out and see us talking about all the things we're doing with AI. But there's a lot that I'm actually testing out with Meta, and so their app, the Meta app, the Meta AI app, I've been playing with it quite a bit. I quite like it. It's taking me on some interesting explorations, and of course Manos. I was first introduced to Manos last year at a AI conference in Boston. But it was primarily around image generation because it was very fast. And at the time, it didn't belong to Facebook. Now it does, and it's doing a whole suite of things that is quite interesting. So a bit more play happening with Manos as well. But when it comes to things like presentations, Gamma all day, every day, a huge fan of Notebook LM, which is a part of the Google. Can we just talk about the Google Suite for a minute? Like if you are a founder, like if a founder, a solopreneur, you don't have whole heap of money, but you really want to start off in a simple, secure way and get AI, Google Gemini, you pay that 15, 16 US a month, and you have all the things. You have Nano Banana, you have and then it gives you the security. It's just like, I just think it's one of the most easy access options for solopreneurs, because you get a whole AI toolkit with just that one subscription. If you're considering, so.
Really good point.
Danielle, if I can back in, talking about a suite, like Stacey just mentioned, Microsoft Copilot. What I love about Microsoft Copilot is that many individuals, whether it's your employees or you yourself, is already familiar with the Microsoft Office suite. So Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and with Copilot now, they have an AI component to it that can help them, just really, really propel the work that they're doing forward a lot more.
Thank you, Mark. And on that same point, I noticed just this week in the Google Suite, I saw this, I think it's called Workspace or something like that, has popped up as a new part of the Google Suite. And in it, I could now build like a mini agent that can, at the start of each day, will scan all my emails and tell me the most urgent ones and create a task or to-do list for me, which is incredible. And there's just so much that's changing every day. So I know we have about 3 minutes left. I see one question that came in from viewers, so I want to make sure that we ask that question. So if we can probably quickly respond to it. This is from Nick's Life. He says, do you think agentic AI and Gen AI are interoperating enough to really have the benefits of a skilled person? Or is the training better spent on the tool to give it, or is the training better spent on the tool or on training a human being to learn and hire them instead? So does anyone want to take this question?
Well, I don't mind taking it. I think I want to reframe it a little bit though, just to make sure that we're following. What Nick, I think, is asking, if he's still there, is when you combine AI that can take action on your behalf, like booking or researching or responding, and you combine that with AI that's now thinking and providing you with ideas, do you actually get something close to a human? Or would you, does it make sense to just hire somebody as opposed to spending the time?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So what I would say is that we're close, but we're definitely not there yet. And even when people say that we're there, I still vote to have the human in the process. I'm not interested in a matrix world. So I definitely encourage us to keep the human in the process. But I will also say that training the machine is time well spent, because when you are doing this in an AI context, you're not training the employee and walking away and hoping that they get it. You're actually building a system, right? And it's a system that learns continuously, without distraction, without sleep. And so ultimately, the ability to scale that machine is going to be much faster than you could scale a human. So I definitely think we're on our way, and that we should get into the habit of having both artificial and real people, because that's where we are. It's not the future. That's actually where we are today. And in order to remain competitive, if you want to look at it through that lens, have a competitive advantage, which at this stage, I think it's just an open playing field, so we just have to make sure that we are maintaining, educating ourselves, etc. So
Thank you so much, Stacey. All right, so for each panelist, I'm going to ask if you can give us a final closing, maybe about 30 seconds, maybe with a charge to all our MSMEs, or so a piece of advice, something that has stuck with you that you'd like to leave with our viewers here today. So let's start with you, Nadeen, and then over to Mark and Stacey.
Oh, wow. Um, it it would be something along the lines of, um, we've been talking about this concept of the world being open for a long time, thanks to the internet. But AI has taken that to another level. And there's levels of possibilities now that are open to us as Jamaicans and Caribbean people because of that. And so I encourage entrepreneurs to just dive into that, take full advantage of that. There's lots of information that is very accessible to help you to do that. And Stacey and I were at a conference this week, and the speaker stood out to me. His name was Marcus Rosier, and he said, the biggest thing standing in the way of persons actualizing their dreams is the failure to decide. And that has hit, because if we think about many of the things that have happened or not happened in our lives, it's come as a result of deciding or not deciding. And so I want us to decide to jump into this AI age and take advantage of the global possibilities that are available to us with this technology. It doesn't mean that they're not risks, but risks are always mitigatable and can be managed, right? And so jump in, decide and jump in.
Thank you, Nadeen. Jump in. All right, Mark, what would you say is your closing words?
For me, I would encourage everyone to think of AI tools and platforms as an additional employee, right? If you have a small team, get them an AI agent, get them an AI tool, or sign them up for the platform, do the investment, not the free version. The beautiful thing about a lot of these platforms are that they're subscription based. So you're not paying upfront and then you're stuck with this thing forever. You can pay $20 this month, and if you don't like it, you cancel it the next month, right? Like Nadeen said, dive in, but give your team the tools so that they can do the work better. Imagine a world where each person on your team, they have their own intern. And they're using them to do research. They're using, the AI agents or the AI platforms to get more work done. And don't only think of it in terms of getting more work done. Think of it as you now have an opportunity to reshape your workplace. You may be able to pull on some AI employees and move to a 4-day work week, as opposed to a 5-day work week, and you're still covering your workload, if not even more, right? So it's not all about just the money. There is now an opportunity for you to be able to do more with less, not necessarily firing people, but giving them the tools to build up your team and do more. So that's my final thought. Just to think of a world where each of your employee, they have their own intern and can get more done.
Right. Thank you, Mark. And Stacey, for the final words.
Well, I'm definitely going to say attend the Caribbean AI Summit. As a region, we are doing amazing things, and we need to see examples of ourselves doing these amazing things. There's lots of us that have already started, are overcoming what are considered common constraints, and it's free, right? So earlier Nadeen talked about getting coaching or getting, your learning going, right? Getting some education. Maybe you don't attend the summit, but begin learning today. And if you know you can't learn on your own, go to a workshop. take a masterclass, take some type of action so that you can begin learning, right? So Summit, CaribbeanAISummit.com, or attend workshops. I have workshops, Nadeen has workshops, Mark, you have workshops. We all have things going on. And there are lots of, Nadeen talked about YouTube. Just plug in, guys. That's it. Lock in and get going.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stacey. What an amazing panel. I think overall, everyone is saying that it's time to jump in, as Nadeen said earlier, get educated, join different workshops and classes, learn about what the possibilities are. But then, as we spoke about at the start of the conversation, ensure that you're assessing your specific scenario and what is best suited for you. Ensure that, the risks that you're undertaking are ones that you can also mitigate and are planning for. And ensuring that this is a tool that will really bring the ROI that you want within your specific organization. So thank you all for joining the Road to BizTech 2026 series. This session was on AI as your first hire. We're very excited that you could all join us here tonight. It's been my pleasure to be your host, Danielle Mullings. Looking forward to the next session. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for having us. Bye.
Bye.